Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Sarafian, and I'm going to be presenting on auditory processing disorder. So let me just start sharing my screen. Go back to the beginning here. Okay. Okay. So an auditory processing disorder interferes with an individual's ability to analyze or make sense of information taken in through the ears. This is different from other hearing problems like deafness or being hard of hearing. It does not affect what is heard by the ear, but it does affect how this information is processed by the brain. So it's not that this individual can't hear what's happening, but it's just like how the information is being interpreted. Okay, and now I'm going to show you an example.
I have APD, an auditory processing disorder. When I was a kid, I had frequent ear infections, which led to minor hearing loss, but I can hear fine now. Now it's thought that my frequent ear infections and hearing loss hindered my ability to learn to process spoken word accurately. So physically, I can hear you, I just can't understand what you're saying. Experiences vary from person to person, but I've tried my best to mimic what APD is like for me. So let's say I'm at a crowded Christmas party. The whole extended family is there, and enough people are jammed into the house that I can't even make it outside to find my siblings and watch them lose at foosball. I retreat to a corner in hopes of spotting my mom, as I only feel the beat of the holiday music. Suddenly, I'm accosted by a second cousin that I only remember because she offered me a beer at last year's Christmas party, which I adamantly declined. So let's say she asked me, "So do you have any plans for New Year's Eve?" But with the holiday jingles that just seem to be getting louder and louder, the clatter of plastic utensils devouring the 7 fishes, and the sporadic and distant cheer of my siblings and cousins that I so desperately want to locate, the words jumbled together, so I hear something more like this. "Alors, any plans for ce vif?" So here's the fun part. Trying to decipher this encoded message in a time that is socially acceptable to stop and think about an answer. Let's say around 10 seconds. First is context clues. Is she offering me a beer again? I didn't hear anything that resembled beer or drink, but that's always an option. It's in a dark room, so I can't really rely on reading her lips like I usually do. Secondly, I have to think, what did I hear? Well, I didn't hear any real words per se, but I did hear something that sounds suspiciously like Stephanie, and another thing that sounded just like Steve. Now, these happen to be the names of my mom and my brother. Could be a coincidence, but I'm running out of time, so I bite the bullet. Yeah, I was just looking for them, actually. And he'll always add the laugh at the end for good measure. He stares at me. I stare back. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I think I messed up. I cringe as I hear that one. The same year I got diagnosed with APD, I attended a Sweet 16 party. A girl I knew from grade school came up to me on the dance floor and started talking a mile a minute. So I smiled and nodded. That night when I went home, I told my mom that she wasn't speaking English. It was something else entirely. I'm traditionally dyslexic as well, but that's a topic for a whole other video. And the point I'm trying to make is that the best analogy I've ever heard for APD is that it's like dyslexia for your ears. My eyes can see just fine with contacts in, the same way my ears can hear just fine. My brain just can't take in the information and put it out as something that makes sense. I have to do the work for it. We with APD have to work twice as hard just to get through the day. It can be exhausting, definitely. There's no cure, but there can be coping methods if you catch it early enough. So here's the deal. Be patient with us. Sometimes we may not be able to understand what you're saying, but we'll sit in the corner at a party with you, and we'll listen, and we'll decipher, and we'll say the wrong things all night, gladly, if you just give us a chance. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the presentation. All right. So having an APD has a big impact on spelling and reading. So as far as phonological awareness, this is the understanding that language is made up of individual sounds or phonemes. And we know that these are put together to form the words that we write and speak. This is a fundamental thing that students need to know before they're able to read. Children who have a difficult time with phonological awareness will often be unable to recognize or isolate these individual sounds in a word, recognize the similarities between words, rhyming words, things like that, or be able to identify the number of sounds in words, like syllables. Having these deficits can affect all areas of language, including reading, writing, and the understanding of spoken language. Though phonological awareness develops naturally in most children, the necessary knowledge and skills can be taught through direct instruction for those who have difficulties in this area. Okay, so auditory discrimination. This is the ability to recognize the difference in phonemes. This also includes being able to identify which words and sounds are similar and which are different. Okay, so people who struggle with an APD are also going to have an issue with their auditory memory. So, being able to store and recall information given verbally. So, if a lesson is presented verbally, this is just something that they're going to struggle with. They're also going to have a difficult time remembering phone numbers and addresses. So, if that's something that your child or student is struggling with, this might be a sign of this. Um, Someone who struggles in this area may also not be able to follow directions that were given verbally. That's just going to be more difficult for them. Also, if you read a story out loud, they just might not be able to remember information from the read aloud. Even though they were paying attention, that's going to be difficult for them. Okay, auditory sequencing. So, being able to remember the order of items on a list, like if they were to make a list of things that you needed from the grocery store, they're probably not going to remember the order that they were in or the order of sounds in a word or syllable. Like, for example, the word elephant. They might know what it looks like, but as you can see the example given here, they're going to mix it up, the order. That's just something that's difficult for them. Okay, auditory blending. So, putting together phonemes to form words. For example, your average student would know that cat can be broken down into cat. And when you blend that together, you're going to get the word cat. But this is something that is going to be a struggle for a student with APD. Okay, so once you kind of get to know what works best for this student, you're going to want to play to their strengths in order to build on the specific areas that they need more development in. What typically will work best is a combination of professional, school, and home therapies with a speech pathologist. This is going to help somebody that has an APD. Okay, and then some things that you can do to help these students. When instructions are given orally, you can try to supplement with a written or visual cues. So even if it's not just instructions, even if it's some kind of presentation in class, ahead of time, providing them with a printed out version so that they can see it, even maybe some pictures, this is going to help them process it. Because again, if it's just presented orally, it's going to take them so much longer because just them trying to process it, they're not going to be hearing everything that you're saying because their brain's working twice as hard at this. And just doing something like this is going to help them so much in the long run. Making your verbal directions simpler, slowing down how fast you're talking, also minimalizing distractions around them. So even preferential seating can play into this. Like if you can sit this student closer to you when you're presenting. And I would say not keeping your classroom door open, because then I think back to that example of the girl at the Christmas party with more excess noise in the background. It's just going to make it more difficult for them. So I would suggest also maybe keeping your classroom door closed so that's less background noise. Some of the things that they can work on to help. Rhyming games are going to help them build phonological awareness, which I did mention earlier. They're going to be able to tell similar and differing sounds. Sorting games will help build auditory memory. You can either make these, break it down, make it a little bit more simple, or make it more difficult. The more experience they get with this. One thing that my research on this did say was that at home as a parent, encourage your child to verbalize if they need something repeated. Just like that girl in the example, when she was at the family party, she did not ask her cousin to repeat what they asked. And it just kind of built up a lot of anxiety. And then she struggled because she thought it was taking too long. So she didn't really know what her cousin said and she tried to guess, and then it was embarrassing for her. So they don't make it embarrassing for them to ask for clarification if they don't know what you asked. Okay, so what if you suspect that your child has a problem? All right, sorry, getting my notes here. Okay, so the first thing is write down the reasons that you think a problem may be happening. Definitely list some examples, as this is going to help you to bring everything more focused, have a focused idea of where they're having a difficulty. Having this list is going to be good in case you have to have a meeting with professionals at their school. Speak to the child's teacher to see if they're also seeing similar behavior. If the student is already working with specialists, a consultation with them can help identify the problem and work on solutions. So maybe they're already receiving services for something else at school. If not, though, you can request an evaluation, or they can also have this done outside of school. Having this evaluation done is going to help identify their strengths and weaknesses. They're also going to be able to recommend accommodations and strategies to help with this student's learning. So after they have this evaluation done, sometimes a child is going to meet the requirements for special education services, and sometimes they may not. Even if they don't meet the requirement, definitely maintaining a good rapport with your student's teacher is going to be key, because having open communication with them, talking about some of these things that were discussed, like some of those interventions that they can do in class, is going to be the best for your student that has an APD. Also, there are support groups, both online and in person, that can help parents and adults, even students, connect with people who are experiencing similar problems and help with ideas or treatment or accommodations and things like that. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.